Is the US dollar dead, or is this just a retracement before the next leg higher? That's what I'm talking about in today's video. I'm going to share my exact trade plan for the euro, the pound, the Australian dollar, and also gold. So my name is Justin Bennett, full-time trader and founder of Daily Price Action. As always, all of this is my opinion only and not financial advice. So let's start out here with the DXY US dollar index. And for the most part, since we've had this gap down, there really hasn't been a lot to do here with the forex market. So really this move started early last week, and you can see where Monday, Tuesday, we got this sell-off here. Okay, and then we had a gap down. Now, since that time, we haven't come back here to fill this gap. And furthermore, we've also now had a bearish change of character on the 4-hour time frame. So this right here is bearish. However, as I always say, this is also not the short setup. Okay, so if we were to get the market moving back up here in this area, then, you know, potentially from there, that could be a short. Okay, so this for now for the US dollar is technically bearish. And this is also a scenario that I talked about recently as something that could materialize, simply because if you look at the daily chart, you can see this imbalance back here, this candle. Okay, right here, we got the move out of this consolidation. So the market went sideways here for a bit. We got the move out of this with this candle right here. And this is completely unmitigated. This entire area down here is an imbalance still for the DXY, an unmitigated imbalance below these lows, okay? So right now, really this area right around like 98.50, 98.60, these lows down here, I do want to see the DXY tap into this area back here to mitigate this imbalance. Now from there, okay, this isn't going to be a matter of guessing for me in terms of where we bottom out down here, just because all I'm looking for is something on the lower time frames, like the 1-hour time frame, for that change of character down in this region. In other words, if we were to get lower for the DXY next week, then all I'm looking for is just the move down here into this 98 region to mitigate that imbalance we just looked at. And then from there, all I'm looking for is just a shift, okay? The market to move into higher highs and higher lows, right? So you get the market giving you a BOS to the downside, you then get it taking out this high back here, giving you that change of character, and then that signals the bottom. So this is not a case where I'm gonna go out there and guess as to where the bottom might be. I'm just gonna wait for the market to give me that signal. But I would like to see the DXY come back here and mitigate this imbalance. You can really see it on the 4-hour, again, down here below these lows back here. So this entire region down here, you can see this gap as well. So this entire region down here is just one massive imbalance for this market. And given this change of character, I do think that this is potentially where the DXY is headed. The question is though, do we move there straight from current level, so just continue to grind lower here following that gap, or do we get the market, like I said, moving back up here into this region? Okay, so following this breakdown, you get something more like this, where off of these highs down here to the low, you get the market coming back up here into premium above the 50% up here in this region before we get that push lower. Okay, so that's the big question that we don't know yet, but for now we do have that bearish change of character on the 4-hour. Now, if you want to see exactly how I trade SMC full time, check out the link right here on the screen. That's going to give you a free SMC course that is nearly 2 hours of content not found here on YouTube, and it's going to show you exactly how I trade SMC. Beyond that, you will have a chance to join us in Discord for my help with your trading Monday through Friday. That includes seeing my trades live, also exclusive setups. So check out the link here on the screen. If you don't see it here, check out the link in the description of this video. So again, going back to the DXY, we have the market giving us that change of character. Now, here is the caveat to this though, and this is a big one, guys. And this is what most traders are going to miss who don't watch this. But looking at the daily chart, because the daily time frame is going to trump the 4-hour, okay? Just like the weekly is going to trump the daily, and the monthly is going to trump the weekly. So you can see the DXY here moving lower throughout 2025. So clearly this was a downtrend, right? Lower highs and lower lows. Now, this was also a downtrend all the way up to this point. We got the acceptance below these lows. So this right here gave us a new breakup structure to the downside. Now, that also meant that these highs up here were the external highs that sellers had to protect, and they failed to do so over here. So if we look at this here, again, we're on the daily chart. If we look at this here on the daily and come in here to this high back here, what you'll notice is that we not only closed above it once, but we closed above it twice. So both of these candles closed above. So we got acceptance above that high back there on 2 occasions. So that gave us a bullish change of character on the daily. Now, those who are not familiar with SMC or don't believe it or haven't had experience with it, probably look at this and think, okay, well, this is just the market sweeping these highs. It's no big deal, right? This is still bearish. In my experience though, from my trading, I can tell you that most times when you get acceptance like this, especially twice on something like a daily time frame, this right here is significant. And in my opinion, it signals that this pullback we're seeing down here toward this imbalance, I've said this now for weeks, that this pullback here is likely to be temporary. Now, I know there's a lot of talk out there about the US dollar being dead and the petrodollar and the war and all of that. And I get it, guys. I'm not a fundamental trader, but I'm not oblivious to why people are saying that. And I understand the implications of all of it. However, at the same time, okay, people call a market dead when it's at the lows. Nobody calls a market. Nobody was calling the stock market dead, months ago when it was at all-time highs. Nobody calls a market dead when it's at highs. They call it dead when it's at the lows. And we've seen this before from the DXY, from the US dollar, where people are saying it's all over for the US dollar as the global reserve, and the market's just going to continue lower. And look, eventually, yes, the dollar will fail as the global reserve. Every currency throughout history has. However, that can take roughly 100 years. So the idea that any of us are going to time a global reserve failing and a new currency taking its place, which can take, as I said, approximately 100 years, the idea that we're going to time that down to, a few weeks or even a month is a little bit absurd in my opinion. So anyway, guys, bottom line, I trade the charts, and I do think that this right here, this change of character back here, is important, is significant, and that it does signal that this pullback down here toward this imbalance could be temporary. But again, watching for that signal down here to get long is going to be critical. Okay, so we can sum this up by basically saying that the lower time frames, the 1 hour, the 4 hour, do look bearish. However, the daily time frame does have this bullish change of character. Just remember though, that bullish and bearish are not synonymous with buy and sell. Just because a market is bullish, just because a market structure is bullish, does not mean that it's a buy. And this is a perfect example. This flipped bullish back here. However, you did not want to buy up here because you'd be buying high, and we did have this imbalance back here. All right, so let's move on now to the euro. So I know I spent a lot of time there, but I do think it's significant just because the DXY obviously is really, for me, it's my barometer for a lot of these markets. And you can see with the euro too, very similar to the DXY, we had the market making an uptrend in 2025. We then had this bearish change of character on the daily time frame. So we had this close. Okay, no question about this. Look at this high back here. Notice the close above. There's no question that we took out this high, making this the external low. I mean, this is as clean as it gets, guys. You can see this close right here was acceptance below. This was a bearish change of character. But again, just because a market flips bearish in terms of the structure, especially on the daily time frame, does not mean that it's a sell. In fact, you do not want to sell when you get a change of character like this. All this signals is that cracks are starting to show within this uptrend. Okay, and the sell here, for me, one of my rules is looking at this high up here, down here to the low. What I want to do, you can see where the euro is actually getting very close to the 50%. So what I want to do is I want to look for shorts in premium. So above this 50% line. Now you can also see where we have this open gap back here as well. But basically the moment that we come here into premium, if we get the move up here, I am looking for shorts. Now, with that in mind, what exactly am I looking for? And this is very simple. It's the same exact concept over and over again. So right now on the hourly, you can see where we are making, right, these higher highs. So what I'm looking for up here, if we get up here, what I'm looking for is just a change of character on the 1 hour, the 4 hour, to give me that change in this trend. Okay, something like this right here. Okay, so if we were to get that somewhere up here, obviously I would need something really definitive up here to signal that, but that's all I'm looking for, guys. This is not just a matter of looking at this area back here and trying to guess at where we are going to top out back here if we do see this retest. It's just a matter of waiting for the market to show its hand on those lower time frames to signal that the top is in. Okay, but I do think though, just like with the DXY, even though you look at the 1 hour, the 4 hour, this right here is bullish. Okay, the fact that we had this BOS down here that made this the external high, we closed above it, so we do have a bullish change of character on the 4 hour time frame. However, again, just because this is bullish on the 4 hour, you've got to keep in mind that the daily gave us that bearish change of character recently. Okay, and this was the first time in basically about a year and a half, over a year and a half, that we have seen a bearish change of character on the daily chart. So in my opinion, this is significant, as is this imbalance back here. Okay, so possibly move up here to fully mitigate this imbalance. I would love to see this gap filled actually. That would really be ideal. And then looking for a change of character on the lower time frames up here somewhere to get short. Now it could be higher up. So the bottom line is if I don't get the signal here and we just continue to grind higher, then that's fine. I would prefer to short higher up here than down here. So all it's a matter of just looking for that change of character up here if we get that move sometime over the coming weeks. So overall, guys, I am still bearish on the euro. However, again, just because I'm bearish, just because we have this signal back here, does not mean the market is a sell. Bullish and bearish are not synonymous with buy and sell. That's incredibly important to understand when you are trading with SMC. All right, so the pound next, really not much change here. We had a big move here from this market, like a lot of the majors with the US dollar selling off, but we have yet to really see a close above these highs back here to give us that change of character. So this just goes to show how weak the pound has been compared to the euro, just because we haven't had, like I said, we haven't had the market take out these highs back here to really give us that change of character. Now, if we were to get that, you can see where we do have some imbalances. Like this back here is technically an imbalance. You can see back here as well with this displacement, above this high as well. So possibly if we got to move up here above this region, same thing, right? Looking for that change of character. But personally, I don't love the structure here nearly as much as I do with the euro, especially if we were to get that change of character, because the problem is if we were to move above these highs back here and get a fresh change of character up here, and then you're looking for shorts, the problem is you're shorting right after a change of character, okay? And keep in mind too, we do have this imbalance back here for the pound, and really the same thing for the euro, okay? So you've got to bear that in mind as well, that even with the euro, we look at this here, you can see where this back here is now an imbalance down here following this move up, okay? So these candles back here, this is also an imbalance. We could get the market rotating lower first before we get the push up here and then possibly a rejection from this area. So keep that in mind as well. If we get a rotation lower sometime, like let's say next week, that could just be the market moving back here to mitigate this imbalance that we've seen recently before potentially giving us another leg higher within this range. Okay, so the same thing here for the pound. Just keep that in mind. But like I said, ultimately, I don't love the structure here as much. This market has been much more sideways really than the euro here over the past couple of months. All right, so moving along to the Australian dollar. Now, this one is interesting because you can see recently where we did get the market actually giving us a bearish change of character. So this is the 4-hour time frame. And what you'll notice is that back here, we had a pretty aggressive rally, especially this part through here. Now, what I talked about recently is we were looking for shorts, okay, over the past few weeks, right? Obviously down here into this area. In fact, this little dotted line that you see through here, this was the area in the last video I made on this, talking about how this could be the point where we bounce for the Australian dollar. And sure enough, that was it. Okay, so we basically came down here, mitigated the first part of this displacement. However, we still have this down here as well. Now, I'm not insinuating that we have to come back here toward this area. However, what you'll notice is that following this rally that we saw back here, okay, so displacement up, we then had the market giving us higher highs back here. So during this time, we never took out these external lows until this point right here, giving us a bearish change of character. Now, what you'll also notice is that the Australian dollar right now is in OTE, okay, so we're above the 50%, so we're in premium, and we are trading right now in OTE. Now, the one thing I have to caution you on is you might look at this and say, well, I'm going to be looking for shorts here. And that could work out. However, just keep in mind where the DXY is trading relative to this imbalance back here, right? We talked about this at the start of this video where this candle back here, in my opinion, this is kind of what I want to see mitigated, okay? So with the DXY potentially having quite a bit lower to go before we potentially see a bottom form, you look at the Australian dollar and you have to ask yourself, do you really want to be looking for shorts right here, okay? Or are we going to get something maybe above this high back here, right? Something up in this region. And, potentially, right? That could potentially materialize. But the bottom line is that until we get a change of character from these markets on something like the 1-hour time frame, then I am not looking for shorts. I'm just simply pointing out that following this BOS back here, making this the external low, we did technically get a bearish change of character recently. Okay, so just something to watch over the coming days. I am not going to rush into this or anything else right now, though, especially with everything going on in the Middle East. So next up is gold. And really, guys, for the most part, since the start of April, really this market has been sideways. You look back here, this was the start of April, so really through this region here. And for the most part, we've just gone sideways. There really hasn't been a lot going on here for gold. Now, the last video I made on this, what I was looking for was gold to potentially pull back down here below these lows to give me, something down here, potentially even a buy down here following what could have been a change of character. Okay, so what I mentioned back there is in that video was that this right here, the question is this high, was this high enough, right, to consider this a change of character. And the reason I say that too is because if you look at this here, right, on this move lower, you have all of this displacement back here. So a lot of times when you get a market that does this and gives you a very shallow retrace, it's always a little bit risky to just blindly call this a change of character and think that we're all of a sudden bullish. Because really, when you look at this, if the market had done this instead, so if we had come down here like this, right, and then we had bounced back here toward this area and mitigated imbalances like this, right, and then move lower and then taken it out, then that would be different. That would look a little bit more bullish. But because this move right here, because of this retracement was so shallow relative to this move lower, okay, I had questions about this right here, and I still do. The only way to validate this right here was going to be to see the market move down here, take out these lows, and then give me a buy signal somewhere down here, which obviously we never got. Okay, so for me, guys, especially with this market so sideways right now, I'm not really too interested in this one. There is still that chance to get the move lower followed by a higher low. But as of right now, guys, I'm really, again, not very interested in this, especially when you consider too that this really could just be gold moving back here to mitigate these imbalances, right? Like this was a massive imbalance here. This candle, you've got this candle up here. So really this could just be gold just churning higher coming up here to give us that efficient auction that we lacked back here. Okay, so, possibly buys on pullbacks here if that's your thing with gold, moving higher here recently. But for me, there's really not a lot to do, especially with this market moving so sideways in April. So that's it for today's video. Keep it locked in here, subscribe to the channel. Also check out the link right here for that free SMC course that shows you exactly how I trade SMC full time. Have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again next week.